Welcome back to SM Sports Radio. We got another SM Sports After Dark for you here this evening, or whenever you are listening to or watching this podcast. But Micah, another good week to talk about sports. How was your week?
Well, my week was pretty good up until about an hour ago where Florida got eliminated from the College World Series. But honestly, to make it to Omaha after the regular season this team had, I'm still pretty happy at the end result. Even though I did pick them to win the national title at the beginning of the year, you would think being eliminated in the semifinals is a bit of a letdown, but we still made it further than Georgia in their historic season, which was hilarious. Made it about 2 hours further than FSU, which was nice. And now I'm just a really big Texas A&M fan, hoping that Tennessee doesn't win this thing. But as far as the week in general, it was good. I've been kind of just doing not a lot, had a little bit of work, but then got to watch the Reds a little bit versus the Pirates, which was a little bit more disappointing. As just no one can hit right now for the Reds. We're back where we were when the rant I think the rant magic has run out on that team.
Yeah, I think you're due for a new rant coming up here soon.
Not quite there yet, but let me tell you, if we keep trotting out Jacob Hurtabees, we might have to talk about that. But anyway, let's really get into the MLB section here. Let's start it off with Willie Mays, who passed away on a couple days ago, earlier this week, and in my opinion, he is the best baseball player of all time. I know people say Barry Bonds. I can't say Barry Bonds because he took steroids. Like, you don't qualify for that if you were on steroids. I'm sorry. And then people say Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth didn't play in an integrated league. He was facing plumbers a lot of the time, and I know he still put up insane statistics, not trying to take away from that, but I think just when you look at the competition Willie Mays played against and the fact that he's third in WAR all time as well on the baseball leaderboard behind only Ruth and Bonds, and he's such a complete player as well. He could do everything really, really well, and sad to see him pass away. One of the game's all-time greats, like I said, in my opinion, the best of all time.
Yeah, he even missed a couple seasons in his prime to serve in the military, so an overall great human being, obviously a great baseball player. And I will echo your sentiment. He's also my greatest of all time. So it's a good call there. Like you said, the statistics speak for themselves. 660 home runs, especially when you play a majority of your games in Polo Grounds, which is 460 to dead center. That's pretty impressive. Who knows what would have happened if he would have played in this era? Well, you could say that about a lot of players, but definitely one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I will say just before we move on from this, the Giants wanted to put a commemorative patch on their sleeve, and they can't because they're sponsored by Chevrolet, who refuses to take their Chevrolet logo off the sleeve to allow it to happen. So Chevrolet, figure your crap out on that. But I don't know what to do with that. Just ad sponsors ruining uniforms yet again. But once again,
2024 problems.
Yeah, 2024 problems there. But definitely condolences to all of anyone who knew Willie Mays, any family of his. And now, as we move on into the more strictly baseball side of the MLB segment here, and let's get things started with your Braves, who have won 6 of the last 7, and this lineup's starting to wake up, notably Austin Riley and Sean Murphy.
Yeah, so last podcast episode, I wouldn't say it really fully lived up to a Micah level rant, but I had what I'll call a mini rant on last week's podcast, just kind of giving up hope on the current state of the Braves. Didn't think it would turn around anytime soon. And then after a couple tough losses to Baltimore, won the third game in Baltimore to avoid a sweep. And then I decided to go to the game last Friday night against Tampa because we had to go pick up some of my family from the airport. And that was the game that the Braves offense decided to wake up. Austin Riley is batting .500 with an OPS over 1,200 since that game. The Braves have won 6 of their last 7 games. And like you said, Austin Riley's heated up. Ozuna's continued to be the consistent force he's been all season. Jared Kelenic providing a spark in that leadoff spot. He had a leadoff home run on Sunday afternoon, which was really good to see. Atlanta Braves fans definitely used to seeing leadoff home runs.
Yes.
But it wasn't until today that Sean Murphy really provided a spark from that middle of the lineup. The top 4 has been pretty good over the last week, but today in that I can't remember if it was the 5 or 6 hole, Sean Murphy really provided a spark. 2 home runs against Tarek Skubal. And this lineup, I think I'm willing to say this lineup is back.
Yeah, it's definitely an encouraging sign, especially I think today was the big test because you're playing the Rays and the Tigers, who aren't world beaters by any means, but to go up against a guy who is the Cy Young favorite in the AL right now in Tarek Skubal and tag him with 4 earned runs and 5 runs in total, even though he struck out 7, to still be able to put the bat to the ball like that, I think was very impressive from this Braves lineup. Y'all look a lot more consistent right now, which is really good to see. It's not just, like you said, it's not just Ozuna and then whoever happens to run into a hit that day. A lot of these guys look locked in right now. And as a guy who is a really big fan of Jared Kelenic and wants to see Jared Kelenic succeed, I'm really hoping he kind of figures life out in the leadoff spot there. I know that'll probably go back to Acuna once he's healthy again, but I just think anything to give Kelenic confidence right now. He's been kind of regarded as a quad A player for so long that hopefully you can see more just MLB progression from him. But staying in the NL East here, as we will be for a lot of this segment today, spoiler alert, let's talk about the Washington Nationals, who have the best rotation ERA in the last month in baseball and are currently winners of 9 of their last 11. And what do you think is really clicking for this team right now?
Yeah, so obviously on a pretty hot streak, 9 of the last 11, as you said. And I just think that the pitching consistency has been pretty good. If I scroll through these past 7 or so games, gave up just 1 run Wednesday night to the Diamondbacks. Did give up 5 runs the game before, but then in a 3-game set with the Marlins, you give up 0 runs, 1 run, and the Friday game is not wanting to load, but they also gave up only 1 run on Friday. So it looks like the pitching has been the point of consistency for the Nationals. I can't say I've really watched any of these games, but consistently holding lineups under 3, under 2 runs over the past week or so, and that's kind of been the catalyst for their hot streak, and even dating back to about a week and a half ago, taking 3 or 4 from the Braves.
Yeah, that's really where this started because they got swept by the Mets earlier in that week, and then since then they've just kind of locked in, really.
Yeah.
Like you said, 3 or 4 from the Braves, then 2 or 3 from the Tigers, weekend sweep of the Marlins, but currently tied 1-1 a series with the Diamondbacks right now, and it seems like they're really getting more consistent production in the lineup. Jesse Winker's been great for them. Nick Senzel, I cannot believe that Nick Senzel is hitting well after watching him as a Reds fan for so long. But really, everything boils down to C.J. Abrams here. He is kind of the heart and soul of this team lineup-wise, and I think he goes under the radar because there's so much young, like, shortstop talent in the league right now, so much publicity around players like Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neal Cruz, and even more established shortstops like Carlos Correa and this year Mookie Betts. So I think, 1, because he's on the Nationals, but 2, because he's kind of less flashy, C.J. Abrams is just sliding right under the radar, and I think that's unfair. Honestly, I would say that C.J. Abrams this slightly hurts me to say, but I think if you ask me pure production-wise, I would rather have C.J. Abrams for the first part of the season than Ellie so far.
That's a big compliment coming from you.
I think he's been that productive for the Nationals. I definitely still have confidence that Ellie's going to be a better player over the course of his career, but purely so far this season, I would say C.J. Abrams has been more valuable. So I know the millions of people watching this right now, go vote C.J. Abrams for the All-Star game. He deserves it. Don't give it to Mookie Betts, who also deserves it. But those 2 guys, I think, both should have an All-Star spot for sure. And I'm curious, do you agree with that? You think C.J. Abrams is an all-star? Because I've seen a lot of people saying that, he's not done enough yet, and I don't know what baseball they're watching.
Yeah, I think you've got to give him the nod simply because he's been pretty consistent over the course of the season, and other guys that have kind of become fixtures at shortstop in the National League, in Trey Turner just coming off the injured list, Mookie Betts just going on the injured list with a fractured hand. He's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. So even if he's voted as the starter for the All-Star game, he's not going to be able to play in said All-Star game. So we might see C.J. Abrams regardless there, even if he comes in second at shortstop. But then other than that, shortstop seems like a pretty wide open position right now.
Well, even
in terms of All-Stars.
The Cardinals, I think, deserves it for this. He's been great this year as well. So much. Also, can we just talk about the shortstop talent right now in the NL Central? When you look at all these teams right here, it feels like you have a great shortstop on every one of these teams. Dansby Swanson's having a bit of a down year for the Cubs, but then Ellie De La and O'Neal Cruz for the Pirates and the Reds. Mason Wynn for the Cardinals. I know Bryce Terang has slid over to second from short, but they have Willie Adames at short there in Milwaukee. So the shortstop talent in the NL Central is really, really good. It makes it hard to decide who to vote for there. But one final NL East team that I feel like we have to talk about is the New York Mets, who what in the world is going on with the Mets right now? And Grimace has taken over the Mets social media. Even the official MLB account released a Mets final score graphic where instead of the Mets logo, it was Grimace with a Mets hat on. They went 7-0 after Grimace threw out the first pitch, finally dropped a game tonight to the Rangers. But, I mean, whatever works, I guess, if you're the Mets.
Yeah, the NL East as a division been pretty hot as well. So you got the Braves on a hot stretch. We already talked about the Nationals, and then the Mets going 7-0, and then unfortunately falling to the Book It with Trent curse. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Book It with Trent, but he's a famous sports bettor that often fan bases get on to him for cursing their team, and he last night declared after the seventh straight win. After the Grimace first pitch, he said, "We'll see how strong Grimace really is." He bet on Mets money line tonight, and they lost. So there you go.
Apparently, he's been betting on the over for Reds runs every game the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
it's been trouble in paradise over there.
Yeah, it's not been great. And why don't we just segue into that now? The Reds took on the Pirates earlier this week. Played Paul Skeens the first game. Skeens was great. I still, like I said last week, I'll give you top 20. I'm not giving you top 10 yet. I just need to see more time from the guy. It's like, I think even Shota Imanaga for me is like borderline top 10 right now. I need to see like a full season from these guys. I want to see them play teams multiple times. But anyway, Reds couldn't hit. They could not hit at all. Carson Spires got shelled a little bit in the game versus Skeens, but then kind of figured it out. Bullpen was able to do decent enough, but Reds just could not score in that game. Then game 2, Dolo Day. Nick Lodolo absolutely dealt. He was incredible. Reds get a 2-1 win over the Pirates. Only scored 2 runs, though. And then in that game, TJ Friedel tweaks his hamstring. Jamer Candelario, it has to be pulled late in the game with an apparent leg injury. And then in game 3, Hunter Green went out there. And if y'all don't know about Hunter Green at PNC Park, it's very bittersweet for him. He threw a no-hitter there a couple years ago, and the Reds lost that game. And then today, Hunter Green threw almost 7 innings of 2-hit baseball and didn't allow a single run, and again, his team lost. He did not get the loss, but his team lost. Hunter Green, this is a tweet from C. Trent Rosecrans, a Reds beat writer on Twitter. It says, Hunter Green's made 4 starts at PNC Park in his career. The Reds have lost all 4 of those starts. And in those 4 starts, Hunter Green is 0-2 with 25.2 innings pitched. And he has only allowed 10 hits, 3 runs, and 2 earned runs for an ERA of 0.7. He's not allowed a home run, which is like the big knock on Hunter Green, is he allows the long ball. He's only walked 10 guys, he's struck out 34, and he's only hit 2. The Reds have scored 1 total run in those 4 starts for Hunter Green at PNC, and he's probably pitched the best there. Not probably, he has pitched the best there of any ballpark, and he cannot get run support to save his life. So I really feel bad for Hunter Green. He deserved the win today. Unfortunately, David Bell and the Reds don't know how to beat a NL Central foe unless it's the Cubs. Every other NL Central team just owns us, and it's sad to say, but it's true.
Yeah, a couple things there on Hunter Green. Number one, just hearing all those statistics, that reminds me a lot of 2021 Jacob deGrom, who had like a ERA under 2. I think it was around 1.7, and he had a losing record somehow, which was very interesting back in 2021. And another thing on Hunter Green, how about that new splitter?
Oh, that splitter's disgusting. Just what was it, about a month ago, where I was talking to you all the time about, man, he's a 2-pitch pitcher. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. I need to see more from him. He's great, but I think he needs to develop more pitches. Well, Hunter Green went, okay, we have this reliever on the team named Fernando Cruz, who is tied for second in the MLB in Ks by a reliever. What does he throw a lot? A splitter. I'm just going to learn to elite one of those. And then he did. In the last 2 weeks, he's gone from barely incorporating it to today, he was absolutely filthy with it versus the Pirates. He's also started to introduce a new curveball, which is still being thrown sporadically. It looks at least decent. So I think if Hunter Green can turn into a 4-pitch guy, especially if
makes
the
a big difference.
Keeps that movement, man, talk about dual aces for a team with him and Lodolo moving forward. It's just a shame no one can hit. But that's enough on the Reds this week. And let's just talk about the NL as a whole, as there are only 4 teams in the entire National League over 500. It's just a mess over there in the NL, honestly. You look at your division leaders are Philly, LA, and Milwaukee. They all have 43 or more wins. Then the Braves sit 5.5 games up in the wild card at 41-31. And then everyone else is under 500. The Cardinals and Nationals are tied for the second wild card spot. They take up the last two wild card spots. They are 36 and 37. The Reds are the third worst team in the National League, and they are 35 and 39. So you have all but 5 teams in the National League, so 10 teams within a game and a half of each other for these two wild card spots. And oh my goodness, this is going to be a mess down the stretch.
Yeah, I think you can pretty much count on the Mets to fall out of that conversation. I don't think Grimace's powers will last.
No, I think they'll be selling at the deadline as well.
Yeah, I think they'll drop a little bit. I'm not sure about the Diamondbacks. They might hang around. I think the Pirates have the pitching to hang around in that conversation. I'm not too high on the Cubs lineup, so I think they might fall down a little bit.
Bullpen too has been atrocious.
Yeah, blew that game against the Giants. What was that? Monday night,
earlier this week.
Tuesday night, whatever it was. And then I think the San Francisco Giants are also going to fall out of that. So I think it's going to come down to probably the Cardinals, the Nationals, the Padres, the Pirates, and the Reds.
Well, I hope the Reds can hang around. It's just, can we get guys back healthy? That's really been the problem for this team. It's just health and hitting. I think if we can maybe pick up a bat at the trade deadline, I would love to see that. I think that would help us out a ton, especially a righty bat in the outfield. We need it desperately. We've needed it for forever, and maybe Charlie Condon falls to 2 and we get it that way. But I don't know.
And if he doesn't, Jack Caglione.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Jack Caglione in a little bit, but. So this National League here, I think for me, the thing that's most interesting is out of all these teams kind of jumbled in a mess, which ones decide, okay, we need to sell at the deadline, and which teams decide to be buyers. And I think this could mess up things for a lot of AL teams, honestly, because how many AL teams are really looking for that bump? I mean, you look at the AL Central, a lot of those teams really fighting each other, the Red Sox in the AL as well. How many of those AL teams think, well, we just need a guy to give us a little bit of boost for a postseason run? And they call up one of these NL teams like, hey, can you trade us this guy that we really want? And they go, no, we're a game and a half out of the wild card. They go, you're 30 games under 500. And they say, we're in the National League. And so I think it's going to make the trade deadline really intriguing. I don't know who's going to sell, who's going to buy. The Reds are never going to buy. Last year we got Sam Mull, who was great, but that's the only thing we did as a team leading the division at the wild card spot. We traded for a lefty reliever from the A's, but it's just not the Red style. I think if I had to guess what teams here added, I would say the Nationals might add. I would bank on the Cardinals adding because that's very much their style to go out and get someone. I would bank on the Padres adding, which they've already done this year with Luis Ariz. I wouldn't be surprised to see them pick up someone else. I would not be surprised to see Arizona add someone else, especially on the pitching side, because this lineup is kind of starting to round out now. They're kind of starting to figure it out, but the pitching has still been up and down, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them get somebody. I think pretty much everyone else there I could see go either way. I would expect the Mets to be sellers. I would expect the Cubs to be sellers. And then I don't know what the Giants and the Reds are going to do.
Yeah, and you got to expect the Braves to be in the market for a corner outfielder. You can't
for sure.
You can't continue sending out Adam Duvall every day, who's hitting about $150 right now.
Maybe call up the Giants and see if they want to release the giant contract they gave Jorge Soler, bring Soler power back to the Braves.
That would be very cool.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting. I mean, it worked out for y'all pretty well last time when you traded for him. So
it did.
We'll see what happens there. Now, finally, jumping over to the AL, let's talk about Garrett Cole, who came back today, pitched 4 innings, allowed 2 earned runs. But, I mean, this Yankees team is already so good. And dare I say it, is Garrett Cole going to be bumped out of the A spot by Luis Gil?
I think that's a little bit premature.
That's a 1.8 ERA.
You're usually very cautious on rookies. What's different about Gil?
The thing with Luis Gil is if you look at his, I don't have time to pull it up right now. It would take me forever. But if you look at his baseball savant, his pitch grouping, he doesn't have really wild, sporadic pitch grouping on there. Everything is kind of tucked into its own little location. So when a pitcher's command is that consistently good, and it's not that he's getting like super lucky on stuff, his whiff rate is incredibly high, but his chase rate is incredibly low, which means he's getting a lot of swing and misses in the zone based on pure deception. I think if you're a guy that can do that consistently, especially versus the competition the Yankees have been playing, that's a guy I already trust. And this is a guy who's had a little bit of big league action previously and came out of the bullpen and was decent out of the bullpen. So to now see him really locked down as a starter, I think I've seen enough from him to say I can trust him moving forward. I was being a little bit facetious, saying maybe he's going to take the ace role. Garrett Cole's the Yankees' ace. Make no mistake about that. But Luis Gil's been a solid starter for them for sure. And honestly, I would say between if you're looking at the three rookie pitchers right now, the three really big rookie pitchers, Imanaga, Gill, and Skeens, I would say I trust Imanaga the most, and then Gill and Skeens are kind of right there, second and third of who I would take next. But all three of those guys have been excellent this year since getting their shot. But back to the Yankees themselves, I think you're going to start to see this team maybe take off. Although we've said that all year, and the Orioles keep hanging around. Although Kyle Bradish is now done for the year, undergoing Tommy John surgery, so another big blow for our Orioles pitching staff that seems to keep just losing guys over and over.
Yeah, and I think the Yankees are going to eventually need some infield help. You obviously got the production in the outfield with Judge and Soto.
Yeah.
Called up Ben Rice to play some first base. He looks like he's going to be serviceable. But then beyond that, the infielders haven't really produced much on the offensive side of things.
But they have best shortstop in the American League, Anthony Volpe.
Yeah.
Have you seen that going around?
Yeah, I have.
I cannot believe that. Anthony Volpe is a good player. He is not Gunnar Henderson or Bobby Witt Jr. Let's calm down. Calm down. But that's Yankees tax right there. That's what's happening. New York market there.
Definitely.
Then the AL Central is still really close right now. The Guardians, 5.5 games ahead of both the Royals and the Twins. And the Twins have Royce Lewis back. And Royce Lewis only hits bombs. The dude is absolutely raking. It's been incredibly impressive to watch. And if I were the Guardians right now, I would start to get worried because not only is Royce Lewis hot, we're starting to see old Carlos Correa come back into form as well. He talked about that he worked with Luis Arraez a lot over the offseason, learning that bat-to-ball skill, and it seems that he's really brought that back. The average is way up from last year, and the power has not disappeared either. So if Royce Lewis can stay healthy, which is always the big question with him, and then you keep getting production like this from Correa, if you can get more consistency from this pitching staff, I think the Twins can honestly make a run at the Guardians.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. The Twins definitely super hot, and the AL Central as a whole kind of passing the baton being the worst division in Major League Baseball over to their friends in the West, the AL West.
I cannot believe how
now
bad
holds
the AL
that title. Mariners 44-32. Everyone else, Astros 9 games back, Rangers 9 games back, Angels and Athletics 13.5 and 16.5 games back.
What's funny too is if you look at their upcoming games here, the Mariners are playing the Guardians, the Astros are playing the White Sox, the Rangers are playing the Royals, and the Angels are playing the Brewers. That's NL Central, and then the A's are playing the Royals. So that's live right now. They move on to play someone next, but the Rangers get the Royals next. So basically, these divisions are entirely playing each other right now. And I don't know if you've looked at the full AL standings, but apart from the White Sox, the entire bottom of the AL is just the AL West in order, except for the Mariners. It goes Astros, Rangers, Angels, A's, White Sox in the American League. So AL West, a division that we thought was probably going to be the second best this year after the AL East, has just not shown up whatsoever this year.
Yeah, not at all. And I think part of that has to do with just the Astros being as disappointing as they've been with their pitching injuries. Their lineup's been okay, but their pitching injuries have been killer. The Rangers just kind of taking a step back, maybe a little bit of World Series hangover. I don't like to just throw that term around, but
it's evident this year.
I think that's probably what it is.
Also, pitching losses for them too.
Scherzer and DeGrom going down,
and you can't expect to get that same production that you got from those guys last year. The kind of Linsanity run you got out of that pitching staff, I don't think you could expect to get again.
Yeah, kind of caught lightning in a bottle at the end of last season, and it's not working out in their favor so much this year as it hasn't for a lot of teams that have won the World Series and tried to do the same sort of thing the next season.
Yeah, but speaking of Max Scherzer, he does come back this Saturday, so we'll see what he's got. Last season, he was honestly really bad before the end of the stretch. I don't know how much of that was him already being kind of injured and pitching through that, but we'll have to see if their ace can really get them back going. Of course, I think their true ace is still on the IL and Jacob DeGrom. But Scherzer, we'll see if he can command the staff, try to get them drug up into that wild card fight right now. But that is it for Major League Baseball. Let's move on to college baseball, where College World Series finals are set. It is the Tennessee Volunteers, number 1 overall seed, versus the Texas A&M Aggies, number 3 overall seed. Tennessee has not won a College World Series since 1951, when it technically wasn't even the College World Series. So neither one of these teams have a College World Series win ever. Actually, I think Tennessee only had an appearance in 1951. They didn't win it.
Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So they just appeared in 1951 and then went in a hole, never to be seen again until this year. But I'm really hoping A&M can pull this off. The bias is evident. I'm going to pick A&M because before this thing even started, I thought A&M and Florida had the 2 best chances to win this thing. I'm going to stick with A&M as a Florida fan who just had to play them twice. The pitching is good. if you get that pitching. I think this lineup too. The lineup has power, and the most annoying thing about playing A&M is they
never swing
the bat.
They never
They
swing.
do not swing the
Oh
bat,
my
and then when they
goodness.
do, it's a rocket over the
Yeah.
plate. So that's the most annoying thing about playing A&M. That philosophy, it works really well, but gosh dang it, is it annoying to play against. So I think this Tennessee team is very good. Don't make any mistakes about that. Semo is just amazing for this
He's
Tennessee
so
team.
good.
The outfielders are giving up their lives daily to catch fly
Yes.
balls, just slamming into the
A different
outfield
one
wall.
every day.
Yeah.
Just face plants into the center field wall.
Yeah. So credit to the Tennessee outfielders for that. You make it fun to watch. But I really hope that this has nothing to do with the matchup, by the way. I hope Tennessee wears the orange uniforms because the gray ones are ugly and the black ones are ugly. Please just wear the orange uniforms versus A&M's, either burgundy or those America ones they have. Give us a good uniform matchup. But please, A&M, win this. I'm going to pick A&M to win this. And who do you have?
Well, I'm number one. I'm glad that I got my prediction right. Tennessee versus A&M.
Yes.
Last week on the pod, that was my pick. I was rooting for your Gators, and I'm not just saying that. I was pulling for your
Yes.
Gators throughout the week. I've watched all 11, 12 games of this College World Series, so it's been a very fun week of baseball.
I have to confess, I didn't watch NC State, Kentucky.
And I regret to inform you that Tennessee will be winning this series this weekend, and
I feel like it's going to happen.
I'm not happy about it. I hate Tennessee. They ended the Tigers season last year in the Clemson Regional. I don't like how they go about things. I don't like that they took Billy Amick from us, tampering. And I just
Okay, Falcons fan, you would know nothing about that.
it's a little bit different there in my opinion, but moving on from that, I think Tennessee just has that it factor right now, and
Yeah.
I know that's not really
I know this word gets
groundbreaking
this
analysis
word gets
or
thrown
anything.
around so much right now, but Tennessee has so much aura right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, their swag is off the charts. Their aura is off the charts. However you want to characterize it, that's what Tennessee has right now. And I will echo your sentiments. Texas A&M has the best pitching staff in the country, in my opinion, both starting rotation and in the bullpen. Chris Cortez, not necessarily sharp in Wednesday night's game against
8 straight
Florida.
balls, 2 walks.
8 straight balls there.
Gave me a glimmer of hope, and then they brought in Oshенbeck, or Oshenbeck was last. They brought in the other guy whose name I cannot remember for the life of me, that just was throwing wipeout sliders.
Shut the door
batter's
pretty
box.
quick on
Yeah.
that one. But while A&M does have that approach where they're going to be super selective, draw a lot of walks, I think Tennessee's 1 through 5 is just that good and is going to be able to bring them over the top here. Christian Moore, obviously Billy Amick, a couple other guys. Talk about the outfielders. I think this is Tennessee's series to lose. I think it's probably going to go 3 games.
Oh, yeah. I think
I'm going to go Tennessee in 3 here.
I'm going A&M in 3. I already kind of gave the reasoning for that. But the one thing I will say about this A&M pitching staff versus, like you said, this Tennessee 1 through 5, you're not going to get the wild chases you got playing Florida versus this Tennessee team. The Florida team, though, they do hit a lot of home runs. They also have a very high chase rate. So not something you're going to see from Tennessee as much. They'll definitely have to make sure they're really on their game locating. But
For sure.
also, I do want to quickly mention the fact that the SEC went undefeated versus the ACC this College World Series. I think that's getting thrown around as like conference superiority. I think the matchups were not great
No.
because
And
when you look at who got to play who,
right. We
In-
pointed to
NC
this last week.
NC State got Kentucky and Florida, and we were already saying that NC State was the second most likely 2-Q team out of everyone
Right.
after Virginia, and then this Florida State team was a great team. It hurts me to give credit to Florida State, but I have to because they were a very, very good team. And when you look at this Tennessee team, what ACC team this year is beating Tennessee?
Nobody.
Like, you can't just say, "Oh, the ACC stinks" because they lost to
No,
Tennessee.
that's the thing about it. So on the one side of the bracket, you had one SEC team, and it was Tennessee.
the best one, arguably.
So, and there's 3 ACC teams, so obviously those teams are probably going to lose to Tennessee, who's the best team in the country. And then on the other side,
one ACC
one
team.
ACC team, and guess who it is?
NC State.
NC State.
Yeah,
like
so-
I understand that the SEC runs college baseball. I'll be the first one to admit that.
But I think using this specific College
Yeah.
World Series to drive that narrative is maybe not the best idea.
And also, I know this is probably just me being an old man angry at a cloud, but but I cannot understand for the life of me like rooting for your conference.
No, I don't
like,
get it.
I hate it.
I don't get it.
Maybe if Clemson joins the SEC, I'll find myself doing that one day. But
I highly doubt you'll.
but
I just don't get it at all.
I didn't go into this College World Series being like, oh, let's go ACC, please beat Kentucky, NC State. Like,
yeah.
I really just don't care that much about conference affiliation. I know it just means more in the SEC, but that is something that I just never have really fully understood.
I don't think
understood, not understand.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to bring this up, so I'm going to for you. I think if Clemson makes it out of their own super regional, they take A&M to that last game for sure, and maybe have a chance to advance into the final. I think Clemson easily beats Kentucky and NC State. So I think you're looking at something much different if Clemson manages to come out of their super regional for sure. So I just don't get using the whole conference. I don't get conference superiority debates. Just cheer for your team. Cheer for your team. Anyway, one last college baseball thing, and it's something I was going to talk about last week, but I decided to wait. And now that the Florida Gators season is over, I want to talk about Jack Caglione because you watching the College World Series have not heard enough about him already. He was mentioned, it seems like
deservedly
5 seconds. But the guy is just amazing. He, with his last hit in the final game versus A&M, he tied the Florida school record for most hits and broke the Florida school record for most home runs in a career, broke the Florida school record for most home runs in a single season, only player ever with 30 home runs in back-to-back seasons. The dude is just a freak, and the fact that he was not a Golden Spikes finalist, what are we doing? You look at Travis Bazana's a great player. I'm not going to say he's not a great player, but when you look at Cags versus this Kentucky team, regular season, they were terrified of him, walked him every chance they got. Then the game versus Kentucky, the morning game, absolutely shelled Kentucky. Had a 1,000 on base, hit a home run, stole a couple bases.
Meanwhile, in 6 plate appearances,
yes.
He got on all 6 times, just if you're keeping track.
Travis Bazana versus Kentucky in the Super Regional went over. So I don't think, when that's the only common opponent you can look at, and then look at just the pure power from Cags, and I know some of the average stats are just a tiny bit lower, but also, if people would have pitched to him the entire regular season, think of the numbers he puts up if he gets pitched to. So I don't see how this guy can be a Golden Spikes finalist last year, put up a better season this year, and be left out entirely. I don't understand it at all. And honestly, I feel like SEMO from Tennessee as well deserved to be in this.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'd bump for him because Charlie Condon and Hagen Smith were both so good. If I'm going to bump someone, it's maybe Hagen Smith for SEMO. I could see either of those being in. But I think the best 4 players in college baseball this year were SEMO, Cags, Hagen Smith, Charlie Condon, in no particular order. I think Cags was the best. I'm going to say it. I think the obvious bias there, but I think Cags was the best. I think Charlie Condon is a very, very close 2. With the MLB draft coming up, I would love to see the Reds get Charlie Condon because we need right-handed outfielder with power. I've talked about it so much. You guys are probably sick of me mentioning it, but I think he'll go at number 1 to Cleveland. And then people saying the Reds should take Travis Bazana at number 2. The Reds already have a logjam in the middle infield. When you look at this team, you got Noelvi Marte probably going to play third, Elliott short, Matt McClain's the second baseman, then Jonathan India maybe DHs, but then Jamer Candelario has to DH. Then where does Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion Strand play? Well, there's no room for Travis Bazana. And we're not going to take a pitcher. If we do, I will jump off a bridge. But we shouldn't take a pitcher because we already took Rhett Lauder last year. And the Cags fit to me is just so good for the Reds because there's a big hole at first base. I know you say, oh, well, Christian Encarnacion Strand. The dude is hurt almost every game, and he has power, but he has no contact. And for the people saying that Cags can't hit with a metal bat or can't hit with a wooden bat, he has a fast swing. He just has a big swing. It reminds me of when Aaron Judge was younger, and people say, oh, Aaron Judge is so big, his swing is so big, he's never going to be a major league hitter. Guy turned out pretty good. So
yeah.
I think Cags is going to be amazing. I would love to see the Reds take him at 2. I think he should have been a Golden Spikes finalist for sure. You cannot watch him play this entire postseason and go, yeah, it's not one of the best 3 players in the country.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that when we look back at the 2024 college baseball season, I may not remember who won the Golden Spikes Award, but I sure as heck will remember Jack Caglione, and it's not just because I'm a Clemson fan and he terrorized my team. Even this week in Omaha.
He terrorized everybody.
Yeah, he terrorized everyone, even on the biggest stage. His performance didn't go down at all. Hitting missiles, getting intentionally walked a ton, still hitting missiles, even when they tried to throw him pitches outside, yanked a
Uh-huh.
fastball in the outside corner into the right center field stands. Definitely no bias here, obviously, because I'm not a Florida fan by any means. And I haven't been following college baseball for all of my life, but in the time that I have been following college baseball, I would have to say that Jack Caglianone, especially over his 2.5-ish year career, got to be the best college baseball player I've ever seen.
Yeah, and he ended up, I think it was tied for 6th all time in home runs by a college baseball player. To do that in by far the lowest number of games on that list, I think it's like 20 less games than the next person in the top 10.
With the less juiced bats too.
Yeah, less juice bats, and then almost no protection in this Florida lineup for a lot of the year. So I just don't see how you can't recognize
Andy pitched
his skill. Yeah, Andy pitched. Andy pitched. We're forgetting that he was a solid pitcher this year. He was a much better pitcher last season, but he was still a solid pitcher this year. So the fear factor of him as a hitter, and I think just him as a hitter deserved a Golden Spikes finalist. And when you throw on the fact that he wasn't a pitcher.
Yeah, by the way, he was two-way as well.
By the way, he was a pitcher with an ERA in the low 4s. So which for college baseball is at least decent. So I just don't see how he was left out, but I'm going to get off the soapbox and we're going to move on. And we're actually going to talk a little bit of college football this week as some interesting news came out of Ohio State. And Caleb Downs, super highly regarded safety recruit that transferred in there this past offseason, has been getting reps at running back.
Yeah, so it's my understanding. Obviously, everyone's going crazy about this. Why would you do this? This is Ryan Day being Ryan Day.
I love this so much.
I like it a lot, for one. And number two, apparently when Caleb Downs was first in talks with Ohio State about potentially transferring over, this was one of the things where he made it clear that he wanted to get some reps at running back. He wanted to at least explore the opportunity of playing on both sides of the ball. I mean, you see what Travis Hunter has done at Colorado, obviously making a lot of headlines over there with his work, both at wide receiver and cornerback. Maybe Caleb Downs inspired by that a little bit. Maybe Caleb Downs was just a really good running back in high school. I don't really know for sure, but even in as stacked of a running back room as this is with Travion Henderson,
you got to give him some.
And with Quinshon Judkins, I think this is a nice little wild card you can throw in, especially if he wants to do it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredible. I think the closest comparison I can think of is like lighter Miles Jack when he was at UCLA and did this. I know he played linebacker, but his build isn't too dissimilar from Caleb Downs, especially both of them in college. I think Caleb Downs, I really hope this happens in the regular season. I think this would be super entertaining.
And I mean, we've seen over the course of a season what workhorse running backs, how all these carries over and over can just kind of burn them out by the end of the season. It can cause injuries by the end of the season. I don't think it would be terrible to give Caleb Downs, say, 4 carries a game and split the others with Henderson and also, with Judkins.
You have a guy that has the hit power that he does as a safety.
Right.
Think of his skill just as kind of, I know he's a smaller guy, but this guy's going to be able to deliver hits as a runner as well. So I really hope this happens. I think it's going to be very entertaining. And then kind of on the negative side of this whole transfer portal recruiting thing, Southern Cal's had a rough 24 hours as they have lost commitments from 5-star defensive end Isaiah Gibson and 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry in just the last day. And one of these, I think it was Justice Terry, has already scheduled a visit with Alabama, which please no.
And I think Isaiah Gibson received a crystal ball to Georgia. So,
so
the rich get richer there.
Yeah, shocker. But literally now with NIL, although I think Texas is the richest. If we look at those,
all those Lambos.
Oregon and Texas, yeah. That was crazy, by the way. The fact that just a decade ago you were like, everyone knew players were getting paid under the table, but 10 years ago it was like,
and now you could just be like, like in the previous era, it was like,
think of poor SMU. SMU's like, we got killed as a program. We got erased from history.
In the previous era, Texas could be like, oh, here under the table, here's keys to a Lamborghini. Now it can be like, oh, here's all our Lamborghinis right outside our practice facility.
You want to drive
Pick which one you want, and you can have it right now.
What this sounds like to me is financial sanctions on Missouri. That's what I'm hearing should happen here.
Yes.
I think this is the logical next step.
Yes.
Although it is hilarious to me that this kind of coincides with SMU finally getting back to kind of the height of football and moving back into a power conference.
And how about SMU raising $150 million in their transition year to the ACC, which, mind you, is the most by far that any athletic department has raised not only this year, but even going back 6 or 7 years ago when the record was set, it was like 93 million, and I think it was Texas A&M, and then Clemson followed behind at around 80 million. But how about doubling that, 159-ish million for SMU?
I think you could very easily see SMU become a top 4 team in the ACC.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
You look at, obviously you're going to have Clemson and Florida State there every year at this point.
Until they leave.
Sure, until they leave. And then it's kind of just that gap of, maybe NC State's here. Everyone thinks Miami's going to be there. They never are.
Man, we've been saying maybe NC State for 15 years, and people are still saying it, and deservedly
third,
so.
Though. Consistently third.
They haven't won an ACC championship in
but
goodness
you think of,
knows how long.
Top 5, probably. Yeah. They're going to always be in that discussion at
for
least.
Sure.
And then, honestly, who else? Why not SMU up there?
Yeah.
They have top 5 odds to win the ACC, and it's going to be hilariously stupid to see, we got an ACC game in Cal this week. But I think
Stanford and Cal on ACC Network.
Yeah. SMU is going to be fun. I'm excited for SMU being in a power conference, even though I do wish it was the Big 12. But that's kind of our little bit of college football for you this week. And
1 month till the new game.
Yes,
let's go.
Finally, we're so close. Then on to the NBA Finals. The Celtics won in 5 games, and Jason Tatum decided to do an impression of everyone winning an NBA Finals ever.
Oh, man.
We did it! Bro is cosplaying Dora out there on the middle of the NBA Finals court.
Yeah, and I understand wanting to have, like, your moment, but if you're going to have your moment, how about make it your moment and not Kevin Garnett's moment?
You saw him, like, in the microphone, then he stares off into the distance like he's taking, like he's deciding, is this a good idea?
What am I going to say?
Yeah, it looks like he's just got, like, the devil and angel on the shoulder, and one of them's like, do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it. And he kind of looks off, and he's like, I'm going to do it. We did it. It was such a weird look on his face before doing it.
So you got that one, which is kind of paying homage to Kevin Garnett. I like that one a little bit. I think it's a little too similar.
It gets memed a lot less if it's not Jason Tatum, by the way.
Yeah, obviously KG saying anything is possible back in 2008 when the Celtics won the title. Then in the locker room, or actually in the post-game interview, Jason Tatum electing to say what they gonna say now, which is what Steph Curry said in 2022 in the locker room, which made more sense for Curry because obviously the one downer that people could have on Curry's career is that he didn't have that Finals MVP. Mm-hmm. So Curry can't be in top 15 of all time conversations because he doesn't have that Finals MVP. That was like something that people harped on. He wins in 2022, wins Finals MVP. What they gonna say now? Jason Tatum wins and doesn't win Finals MVP, and not really a team that was doubted at all. The preseason favorites to win the title.
The interesting thing that this brings up, though, if you think about it, is when they were both drafted, there was the Kyle Kuzma, Jason Tatum debate. And now they have the same number of rings and same number of Finals MVPs. So it's still, you could technically say, it's not a debate, but you could say, is Kyle Kuzma still on par with Jason Tatum right now at this point in their careers?
No. Andy's on the Wizards.
Yeah.
So there's that.
RIP your career, buddy. Speaking of RIP your career, Monty Williams fired again. Good.
Yeah. $65 million into his bank account. He does not have to coach, or he does not get to coach again. Obviously, 5 years, $65 million left on that deal.
I could stand on the Pistons sideline and do nothing for that much money if they want me to.
If they really have a need there.
Yeah.
And then before we wrap up on the NBA Finals, one more thing I wanted to hit on with Jason Tatum. Thought it was really cool, that picture they got of him holding up his son Deuce.
That was very cool.
I think that's one of those pictures that's what we're gonna look back on in 10 years. And Jason Tatum's not gonna have one of those marquee interview moments. We're gonna be able to look at that picture and be like, oh yeah. that's Tatum's moment.
That
from the 2024 Finals
on like a wall in his house for forever. I think you can expect that to be there. But that was very cool. That's probably my favorite part about Jason Tatum, is just that he's this real authentic dad.
Yeah,
it's so respectable.
And that was the one time throughout the whole post game festivities and interviews, stuff like that. That was the one moment where it seemed like he was just truly being his authentic self, which is really cool to see. And back on the basketball side, just for a little bit, if you will. Also, another prediction that I hit, just saying, Celtics in 5 or 6 was my prediction a couple weeks ago, which went well for me there.
I have no idea what I said. I think I picked the Mavericks.
Yeah,
Pure delusion.
I think you said Mavs in 6 based on vibes.
No, I said Mavs in 7 based on vibes, I think. But either way, so wrong.
Yeah, and obviously the Celtics with that great duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown getting the nod for Finals MVP. Think I would have voted for Jason Tatum. Obviously, Jaylen Brown had more of an impact scoring the basketball. I thought Jason Tatum.
What about Peyton Pritchard?
those half court shots were cool as well.
I saw a tweet that said, "Dude is the first ever NBA special teams player."
Yeah, that's a perfect way to characterize it. But Tatum just really matured this season, in my opinion. Not so much trying to get his, really just trying to be a team player, doing what's best for the team. Saw him really crashing the boards, getting a lot of good rebounds, and then kind of playing point guard on the other end of the floor as well, racking up on assists. I think the Celtics team is set up really well for the future. I think the Mavericks, not too sure what you do there. Still think Luka gets exposed a little too much on the defensive end.
What
I think
you
we
do
saw
there
more
is
of
you
that.
lock Luka in a gym over the summer and
With a
say,
treadmill.
learn how to play defense.
Yes. Please learn how to play defense, Luka. That's what the Mavericks are telling him. I'm going to come out and say that I think that the Celtics are going to win 2 of the next 3 championships. So I think that'll give them 3 of the next 4, or no, 2 of the next. I'm going to say 2 of the next 3, including. No, I will say 3 of the next 4, including this one. So I think in the next 3 years, we're going to see the Celtics win 2 more championships. I think they're just set up very well with that roster around both Tatum and Brown. Drew Holiday, really high on him as a perimeter defender. I think they will win 3 of the next 4, including this season. What do you think about that?
I'd say it's definitely feasible, although if I've learned anything from watching NBA coverage on ESPN, it's the 2 most important questions here are, how will this affect LeBron's legacy, and is next year Joel Embiid's time with the Sixers?
No. It will never be Joel Embiid's time with the Sixers, unfortunately. And, okay, I lost my train of thought. Keep going.
Anyway, so that's, I think, a lot about the NBA. We talked a lot about the NBA. I will say one thing about predicting future champions.
Oh, here's what I was going to say. The one thing that would kind of put a halt on that for me is if Anthony Edwards finds his Robin. And no, Karl Anthony Towns is not his Robin. I think Anthony Edwards has what it takes to be Batman in this league. I think he's going to win a lot of championships, but I think he needs a sidekick. Yeah. The Timberwolves need to find that sidekick, have that defensive-oriented team that they have around Anthony Edwards for right now. But I think to take them over the top, they need one more big piece.
Yeah. And speaking of needing more pieces, I wish that my Suns would go out and get people that can play defense because there's so much scoring on that team. There's incompetent coaching, although bringing in Budenholzer, I think, is a massive step forward for this Suns team. I hope he can get that team to gel, and I think if we pick up a couple defensive signings, we could maybe make a conference finals run. I just don't see this trio ever really gelling well enough to work as a championship run, which is disappointing, but that kind of is how it is. One final thing I do want to ask you is, as we head into the NBA offseason, what do you think happens with Steph Curry?
Well, Steph Curry, I believe he's still under contract with the Warriors.
There's been a lot of rumors, though, about him moving.
Really?
Yeah.
I have not seen any of that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors about him moving.
I think Klay Thompson is going to be the one that ends up moving. I think Steph's going to be a Warrior for the rest of his career unless Charlotte decides that they're going to try to win. I think Charlotte's...
I need the Charlotte announcer calling Steph Curry every night.
I think Charlotte's the only place that Steph would ever consider leaving for, just with his dad's ties there. I think Steph's pretty content with his legacy that he's built in Golden State. He's won before Kevin Durant. He's won with Kevin Durant there, and he's won after Kevin Durant there. So I think he's pretty content in Golden State. Don't really see him moving anytime soon there.
What about Thompson?
But I think Thompson might have played his last game with the Golden State Warriors. I think the Magic might be a fit for him. Really, any team needing shooting, even though Thompson had a really tough end to the season. I was about to say,
you could also hire a stormtrooper.
Yeah, you can't get in any NBA posts comments without saying, "Don't let this distract you from the fact that Klay Thompson went 0 for 10 in an elimination game," which is true. But I do think that Klay Thompson has a little bit of basketball left in him, winning basketball, that is. Don't know where that is. Don't think it's with the Warriors. But I think Klay Thompson has a little bit left in the tank.
I definitely hope so. He's a very entertaining player when he's hot. But congratulations.
Also playing on the Bahamas national team this
Yes,
offseason.
shout out the Bahamas. But also, one final congratulations to the Celtics, and congratulations to my guy Al Horford, Florida Gator legend,
Yes.
for winning an NBA championship. And now on to the Stanley Cup Final, where I might be cooking. I had Oilers in 7, and
You
it
did.
looked so dead after the first 3 games. But Connor McDavid has taken this series over. Sergei Bobrovsky starting to fall flat. Stuart Skinner has locked in net for the Oilers. This team is playing more cohesive defense. They're not just lobbing shots to the front of the net anymore. They are actual play shots. The offense looks a lot more coherent. They're actual plays being run. It doesn't look like everyone's just haphazardly passing it back and forth, hoping, we need a shooting lane. We need a shooting lane. They're actually designing where they want to go with the puck, actually being consistently intentional about what they're doing in the offensive zone. The defense has really buckled down. It's been a very big part of this. And honestly, Game 6 in Edmonton, I find it hard to imagine them losing Game 6 back in Alberta. And Game 7, they've already proved they can win an elimination game in Florida. So
Yeah.
it's definitely possible. I definitely think the series goes 7 now. I think Edmonton takes Game 6 back home fairly easily, but you never know what's going to happen in a Game 7. I think the real outlier here is, or the X factor is, what do you get from Matthew Tkachuk if you bring it back home to Florida in a Game 7? It's a guy that Jason Tatum has actually talked about a little,
Yes.
go win one. Matthew Tkachuk, childhood friends there, but
St. Louis boys.
yeah, I think you're going to need a big Game 7 for Tkachuk. If Edmonton manages to force Game 7, if they pick up that win back in Edmonton, you are going to need a legacy game from Matthew Tkachuk in Game 7, I think, to win this Stanley Cup, because Connor McDavid is hungry right now. This Oilers team is hungry. They can sense blood in the water, and once that team gets hot, they're very hard to stop. There's actually a stat from earlier in the season. The Oilers, earlier this regular season, there were 3 separate occasions where they lost 3 in a row in the regular season. And after each of those occasions, they had a winning streak of 5 or more games.
Oh, wow.
So that's very interesting now looking at this series to see what will play out. Like I said, I definitely think it goes 7 now with it going back to Edmonton again. But like I said, if anything can happen in Game 7, I'm going to stick with my Oilers in 7 prediction. It's still possible. So I would love to see Connor McDavid get a cup. I think 99.9% of the hockey world would love to see Connor McDavid get a cup at this point. But we'll have to see just what happens. That I'm super excited to watch the last couple games. But with that, I think that is it for this week of SM Sports Radio. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week.